covering different topics related to plagiarism in the last few videos. When writing a research paper, there is one particular section where students tend to plagiarize the most, the literature review. So today we are going to talk about how to summarize articles for literature review in a way that avoids plagiarism. Without further ado, let's dive into it. What is literature review? Before we go into the details of how to properly summarize articles, let's briefly talk about what a literature review is. A literature review is where you give an overview of related scholarly articles or studies you deem to be useful in supporting your work. This includes methodologies, applicable theories, or missing information in other studies that are relevant to your topic. Basically, it is an evaluation of the current state of existing research and a demonstration of how your research will fill the gaps. How to summarize articles. First and foremost, a good literature review is not a simple summary of relevant articles. It should have depth. It should demonstrate a mixture of critical analysis, the use of synthesis, and the evaluation of existing studies. Here are the aspects you need to keep in mind to avoid plagiarism when summarizing articles. The first tip I want to talk about is establish the focus. So the first thing you need to identify is the focus of your summary. This is the why of your summary. Why do you need to summarize a study? The focus should be on how the study applies to your paper. So you may need to zero in on the parts of the sourced article that are most relevant to your paper specifically. The second tip is to scan the article. You don't have to read the whole article right away. It is very helpful to develop the skill of briefly going over an article and using your instincts about where more reading time is necessary. One way to develop this skill is to know what to look out for and which parts of the paper to briefly look at. There is definitely an established layout of most research papers. They are abstract, introduction, hypothesis or research questions, methodology, data interpretation, which is a discussion or implication section. These are the main parts you need to scan. This will help you get a general idea where the article may have information that will be relevant to your own paper. The third tip involves read and evaluate the article. Once you decide an article is worth more thorough reading, you should add it to a short list of articles to focus on. Now it is time to proceed with reading it comprehensively and making your initial evaluation. You can start highlighting important parts that you want to revisit and put more focus on in your summarization process. Always give yourself enough time to read and understand the article. While you are reading and evaluating, remember to do this as interactively as possible. For example, ask yourself questions that will make your evaluation easier and your understanding more thorough. Here are some questions that might help. How or in what way does the article answer the problem? Does this article present any additional information in solving the main problems of the topic? Are there any compelling results? Does the article fill in the gaps, or are there more questions that are left unanswered? If you are able to come to valid answers to these questions, then you can definitely include this article in your literature review. The clincher is how well you summarize it. When you are reading and evaluating, make notes in your own words based on your understanding. This will help gauge your level of understanding and then will be useful when you do your first draft. The next aspect I want to mention is creating your first draft. Writing your first draft will prove to be easier if you made a good use of your reading and evaluation stage. Review your notes. Do they look too similar to the original text? If so, then you might want to backtrack and reread the referenced article to create new notes. If your notes are too similar to the original, it means that you have not demonstrated a thorough comprehension of the article. In writing your first draft, it is important that you choose the right format for your literature review. Decide if your literature review will be chronological, thematic, methodological, or theoretical. Your draft should have these formats in mind. Then follow the structure of the original article, but of course paraphrase in your own words. Remember, when writing your first draft, don't focus too much on length, but focus more on the content. Your first draft will most likely to be too long, but you can shorten and condense later when revising. Avoid overstating how important the results are because you can elaborate on that in other parts of your paper. If there are parts that you have difficulty with, move on to the another section and then go back to these parts to make the most of your time. The next aspect I want to introduce is revise and finalize. A summary will almost never be good to go in one setting. You will always need to revise and condense before you include it in your research paper. The two main things you need to look out for when revising are accuracy and style. First is the accuracy of your work. Make sure you don't exclude any important information. This could have negative results. It could change the context of the original source or overstate an idea, thereby making it redundant. When checking for accuracy and completeness of your first draft, remember to be as concise as possible. Don't be vague or too general. Next, the style needs to be examined as well. Your summary should read and sound intelligent while remaining interesting for readers. It should be easy to digest without assuming that your readers already know and understand the information you are presenting. To do this, consider the following. Avoid wordiness. So remove any unnecessary phrases or statements that could divert the reader's attention from main message. Avoid vague language. Be specific and accurate. Make sure your readers will easily understand who or what you are talking about. For example, this shows is too vague. So it is better to say this sample shows. So refer to specifics. Paraphrase more instead of quoting directly. Paraphrase instead to demonstrate your understanding. Use the appropriate vocabulary that is scientifically accurate and academically acceptable. Don't use words that make the content of your paper sound unreliable. Don't claim to have proven your hypothesis. Instead, show that you found support to strengthen the possibility of your hypothesis to be true. Read your summary again and have other people read it before deciding on the final form. Just like any other writing skills, summarizing articles takes practice, but knowing the basics will start from well-founded position. Make these helpful practices a habit, and eventually it will become second nature. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this helps you summarize articles more easily. See you all in my next video.